Welcome to K6 Wellness Revolution, where we believe health is worth fighting for. This podcast focuses on all things related to natural health, wellness, and vibrant living. We know your time is valuable, and I'm honored that you're spending some of it here. So get ready, because the Wellness Revolution starts right now. Welcome to the K6 Wellness Revolution podcast. My name is Sharon. I'm the owner of K6 Wellness Center in Dallas, Texas, and I'm going to be your host today along with
Elena here, one of the other practitioners here at K6 Wellness. Thrilled to be here and just getting to chat about the questions that you, our clients, have. It's fun to bring you information we love, but we love hearing from you, knowing what you want to hear about.
Yes. And so we self-anointed ourselves as experts this month. And we put a note out to everybody in our email list. If you want to be on our email list, then absolutely click on the link in our bio and we'll get you added. But we gave out everybody the opportunity to just ask us, hey, what are, questions about natural health, healthy living, integrative medicine, functional wellness? What are the burning questions on your mind? And I was astounded. I had no idea we would get so many questions. Were you shocked?
I was. I thought we're going to have to really pull these out of people, but y'all came forward with so much. Y'all really came through. Like it was awesome.
Yeah, we have. And so we're going to preface this by saying some of these questions were so good. We're going to do a whole podcast episode on the topics, but there were a number of really good questions that we felt like this was an appropriate, way to respond to. So we're going to start addressing questions and we're going to try to give you list our sources or resources, and then sometimes it's strictly opinion. So there you go. There's your disclaimer up front.
So with that, let's jump right in, Sharon. Let's hit our first question. Our question is about dehydration and tips on how to hydrate beyond drinking water and test a monitor. So why don't you go ahead and weigh in on this one for us?
Okay. So I think this is something I know for me, and I'm sure for you too, this is something that we hit with every new client. We always ask, it's on our intake form. How much water do you drink? How much other things do you drink? And it's really important because just because something is fluid doesn't mean that it's helpful. And that's something that always gets me when you go to the movie theater. Have you ever seen the commercials for soda? I'm not going to name the company, but they talk about, these huge amounts of soda. And you know how you go buy a gallon of soda at the concession stand, but they say this counts towards your daily intake of fluid. And they make it sound like you've done something healthy by drinking this sugar syrup with bubbles. And I'm like, that's really misleading, because people do think, oh, everything I drink counts. But that's not true. So for hydration, and this question was specifically hydration, water's the big part of that, right? And we tell people, look, baseline is half your body weight in ounces of water. Is that perfect? No. But it's a good starting point, because the fact of the matter is a lot of people do not recognize the signal in their brain for thirst. A lot of times it gets misinterpreted as hunger. So we find ourselves eating instead of drinking, and that's a problem. But we have people who come in here, and when we do the EAV testing, it's a conductivity test. And if they're dehydrated, they're not very conductive. We can tell when people are dehydrated. But yes, half your body weight in ounces of water. If you exercise or do sauna or something that causes you to sweat, you need more. And, estimates vary on that. Some people will say half an ounce per minute, or sometimes more. I generally will work out sweaty workout for 45 minutes, and I try to drink a quart of water just in that time. But it's important to replace the fluids that you're losing. Now, sweat is important to produce because it's a big elimination practice of your body. But how do we replace all of that? One of the things that we really like to promote is, yes, drink your water, but get the electrolytes in. What are electrolytes? Those are trace minerals. Okay. There are a lot of trace minerals. Now, the big ones, if you go to the big box stores or Amazon, you're going to see it's magnesium and sodium chloride and potassium and maybe a few more thrown in there. And that's fine. You know, if you're cramping at night and you're a big sweater, you're probably low on electrolytes and dehydrated. But you can make, this is something I want everybody to have an action item. You can make your own electrolyte solution at home for pennies, literally. It's called a salt sole, and it's basically taking a salt, not table salt, and you're dissolving it in water. You're either putting a crystal of Celtic sea salt or some sort of Himalayan salt on your tongue to let it dissolve. And of course, in your buccal membranes inside your mouth, that's a really fast way to get stuff into your system fast. And follow that with water. Or you can make a super saturated salt solution using rocks. Again, Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt, Redmond real salt is another good one. And the reason we like these better than just the table salt that you buy at the grocery store is because you've got a lot more mineral in there. Like with Celtic sea salt, there's over 80 minerals. And with Himalayan salt, same. Redmond real salt, I looked it up and it has around 60 minerals in it. And all of these come from better sources. When you buy iodized table salt, you're basically getting sodium and chloride and dextrose. And if you do a taste test side to side, you'll tell the difference. Elena is a big salt connoisseur. I mean, if there was a
Salt
way to
snob.
be, yeah, if there was a way to be a sommelier of salts, Elena would be that. Why don't you talk about this?
Well, it started with the knowledge that some of these salts are better than others. And then as I started eating different ones, and this, I know this goes for you and anyone else, once you start eating the real wholesome salt, you notice that, yes, the table salt's going to taste like chemicals, and it actually doesn't enhance the flavor of your food. When you've been really strict off salt, period, because sometimes there's a time to fast from certain things. I know when I've done fasts and I come back to salt, and if I eat out and have salt, I'm like, this is horrible. How are we used to this?
Yeah.
But some of my favorite salts, though, aren't always the cheapest salts, but you get what you pay for. You could get the cheapest table salt and it's going to have all those chemicals in it. But I'd rather get the full flavor. And, with that, you can find some good ones at Home Goods a lot of the time, or TJ Maxx. I love that. You can find these gourmet, high quality salts in an affordable price range. So I'm not going to name any particular brands or names, because then someone's going to say you didn't mention this one or that one. There's a lot of brands out there. But being a salt snob is not the worst thing in the world. I
So
mean,
true.
I can survive if I have to, but I'd rather not. I want my food to taste good, and I want my salt to taste good. And there's a lot to salt as well. Some people need more than others. That's an important thing to know about yourself with your hydration levels, to know when you've had too much salt and
Yeah.
when you need it, when you need to go get that little pinch of salt. Because the thing about salt is you're going to feel awful with too much or too little. You want that little sweet spot right in between.
Right. And a good way to know if you've had too much salt, which is what we tend to worry about more in America, because your medical doctor is usually the one telling you need to reduce your salt if you have high blood pressure. But sometimes you actually need a little more salt. And when we say salt, we really mean not just sodium, right? But all of these trace minerals. And it's okay to salt your food. If you look, salt, throughout history, salt is used to preserve food. Salt was used for many things to flavor food. It's not the enemy. Using salt does not make you an unhealthy person. It can add flavor. It can also enhance your brain activity and help more neurons fire.
Well, and it's important to note too. I mean, if any of our listeners have listened to us for even one episode, y'all know that I love to reference the 3x4 genetic test,
Yeah.
because on the nutrients that it measures, salt is one of them. And it's really helpful to know when you're trying to figure out, what do I need to cut back on or add into my diet, salt's a big question. And it's just nice to know where you fall on that scale. Should you have more? Should you have less? And that will impact your hydration levels. I mean, for me, I need all the salt I can get. And I always knew that because I could drink all my water and still be dehydrated.
Yeah. And yeah, salt is really important for a lot of functions at the cellular level. We have a recipe for making your own electrolyte solution at home called Salt Soleil. And if you click in the show notes, you can get the PDF of our Salt Soleil instructions, but it's super easy. It's very basic. It takes salt and water. It's real hard. So it's a great thing to just look at, how much water are you drinking? Number one, make sure you're getting enough water in. And then number two, are you drinking, are you getting enough electrolyte? And then we're going to go into quality of water later, but
Yes.
stay
So
tuned.
that's your hydration tidbit. Our next question is a big one, especially this time of year. Not our next question though, in reference to children and wellness, going back to school, and trying to stay healthy on a budget. I know that's a big question for a lot of our mamas out there. You're just working so hard to keep your families healthy, and everything is getting more and more expensive. But a lot of the basic things don't have to cost the whole bank. So, Sharon, why don't you start on that for us?
Yeah. So this time of year, yeah, I think everyone's been back in school, what, about a month now or 3, 4 weeks? And now everybody's got a cold. Everybody's got an upper respiratory infection. Happens every year. And here in Texas, we've got ragweed and elm trees and grass all firing up, and our pollen counts are super high because it's September. But the free and easy, that's what we want to hit first, right? So nutrition. Now, nutrition's not free, and sometimes it's not easy, but it is simple. And in a nutshell, quit eating crap and don't feed your children crap. What is crap? Crap is processed food. If it's something that doesn't look like it's in its natural state, then it's not worth eating. Fruit leathers or fruit roll-ups or whatever you call them, it's not the same as eating an apple or a banana or a slice of watermelon. You need to eat real food. That's where wellness begins. Hydration, like we just talked about, making sure your kids are drinking water. Juice is not water. Juice actually has as much sugar almost as soda, maybe a little more. I can't remember. It's close. But if you think about how many, like, take oranges, how many oranges does it take to juice to make a cup of orange juice? It's so many more than your kid would ever sit down and eat at one time. So don't give them that much juice because it's just too much sugar. And then definitely it goes without saying, things with food coloring and high fructose corn syrup, Gator or electrolyte drinks. I'm not saying any brand names, but things like that that have all these extra ingredients, that's not really ideal for your kids. They need water. Water is the most important thing. They need sleep. And this goes for high schoolers as well. I'm always telling my high school clients, how much sleep do you get? And they're doing good if they get 7 hours. But there are studies that show that teenagers like 16, 17, 18 need as much sleep as a toddler. And I just think that kids don't sleep enough. And if they're not sleeping at the right time of night, if you're letting your kids stay up late, it's not good for them. It's not good for our circadian rhythm. So that is a free and easy thing to do. Institute a bedtime and stick with it. It takes a long time to build a habit, but stick with it and it becomes easier. And then exercise, getting physical activity, using your muscles, stretching your limbs, having a lot of active outside time also gives your body the opportunity to ground. And what is grounding? Well, grounding is when we're putting our body on the earth to help take in some of those really good electromagnetic frequencies that come from the earth. Those are all important things. And then, of course, there's like the do nots, right? Like screen time. No kid needs a bunch of screen time. And I just saw a thing, Elena, the other day. There are some congressmen now asking for warnings to be put on electronic devices with screens for kids. It's
Nice.
like, well, that is late, but better late than never, I guess. But yeah, we need to be limiting the external stimulation that's artificial and involves blue lights and Bluetooth and EMF and all of that. And all of these things are way more important than any supplement, period. And I
I would
sell
agree.
supplements, so do with that what you want.
Well, that's where it's important to remember all the basic things before you think you have to go spend all this time, money, and energy on things when you've got so much more at your fingertips if you're just monitoring what is going in the body and what you're being exposed to via food and environment.
Yeah. And if you're going to give your kids supplements with children, especially, we love homeopathics because homeopathics are, first of all, let me just clear it up. They're not herbs, right? It's not herbal medicine. Like you may give your kid elderberry syrup or garlic or mullein or something like that. That's not what homeopathics are. Homeopathics are very diluted. It's almost an energetic type remedy, but there are really well proven homeopathic remedies like belladonna, which is a pain reliever. I always tell people it's homeopathic acetaminophen or ibuprofen for fevers and pain. Pulsatilla is when there's a fever or pain with snot. So a wet fever. But then there's the one you can find almost in every grocery store now for flu. It's oscillococcinum. It's a mouthful. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever seen it. You would probably looked at it and said, I don't even know how to say that. For sinus congestion, you've got Kali, Kali, and then the second word is bichromicum, but BI is just what it goes for. But then if you've got stomach bugs, you can give arsenicum album or homeopathic ipecac. And we know ipecac to be something in full form, it will make you vomit, right? That's what you do if like a kid has swallowed something they shouldn't swallow. You give them ipecac so they vomit. Well, homeopathic does the opposite. It helps stop vomiting. So there's no actual ipecac in it anymore. Or Nux vomica. So there are all these different remedies, and there are great websites that you can go to kind of help determine what homeopathic remedy should I buy, or you can come see a practitioner. Ask if you have a functional medicine provider or a naturopath or a health coach, you definitely want to ask them about having homeopathics. So those are really big things. That's just scratching the surface.
Because then you could also do things, if you're local, come in to see us, or we can do virtual appointments where we can test through what are going to be the right remedies for you when you're sick and your children. But we do clearings as well. And that's where we're just testing through what your body's reacting to. And we do a desensitization to that toxin or pathogen. And it's just a great, simple, and affordable way to help reset the way the body's reacting to these things. And, I think people forget about it. It's such a simple little part of what we do here because there's so many things that we do that I just want to remind people, get a clearing. If it's not us, if you've got other practitioners who do this, it's such a helpful tool. And there's things you can do to clear at home as well. And we've talked about that maybe in the past or maybe it's some other conversations, but that's something that sometimes it's necessary if you can't get to a practitioner. There's things that can just help you get by with the clearings. But then there's also Rife technology, which, you have to be local here to come in the office and do that. But I know a lot of our listeners are local. And for those that are, remember that Rife is another simple thing you can do. You could bring the whole family in and just be exposed to those good frequencies that are going to help stimulate the immune system and just help your body clear it out.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. It's not just take this pill. There are so many things we can do, even sinus rinsing, right? Because so much of what we see this time of year is upper respiratory. Sinus rinsing is pretty much free. It doesn't cost a lot. So there's so many things you can do to help your kids, but build that healthy lifestyle. I think that's where it all begins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. What do you do when the ileocecal valve goes wonky and won't open and close properly? And I love this
Oh,
question because it's like,
well,
oh, this is a good one. And I'm impressed this person knew what that is.
yes. You know, the ileocecal valve, for those who don't know, that is where the large and small intestine meet. And that little valve there can really get an attitude a lot of the time. And it's so fun to see on a thermography. We can see when that's a problem. But sometimes you just know based on how you feel, because a lot of you listening may not know what the ileocecal valve is, but it's located in your lower right quadrant, kind of by the appendix. And there's a lot you can do at home to just simply reset that, or make sure it has good tone, kind of like a little workout for that valve. And there's a lot of videos online, but essentially what you do is you just find your belly button and the top of your hip bone, and halfway in between there. That should be somewhere around the appendix, around the valve. And you can just, while laying down, that's an important part. While you're laying down, you can press down and up towards your heart. And you often can feel the pain in that area that is releasing. And the best part is when you get that little gurgle of it resetting. That's always so satisfying. And if you need help with that, that's something that I can walk people through on video appointments or when they come in person. But it is important to make sure that that valve is opening and closing properly. Otherwise, you could be stuck in a state of diarrhea or constipation, depending on if it's stuck open or stuck closed.
Absolutely. And that's the first thing when people say, oh, I have chronic constipation. If we lay them down on the table and start poking around, you can usually feel it's like a pea or it feels like a little almond if it's real bad, but they usually go, oh, that hurts in one spot. And that valve, if it's not closing and opening properly, it can become problematic, but there's definitely help for that. And there's some good YouTube videos on it too. So, I mean, you can almost get a degree on YouTube. So, why not? But we'll link to one of our favorites, Dr. Narola Jacoby. She does a lot of work with Gotten Immune, and she has a great at home technique. And so, we'll put that down in the show notes as well. So, yeah. And then the next question is I would like it. It's not a question, it's a statement, but we took it anyway. I would like advice for pre diabetics. That's a big one.
That is because diabetes is a very preventable disease. And we just see so much of it in the US and in just our modern way of living. But there's a lot of factors that can influence it. And, whether it's influence actual diabetes or pre diabetic symptoms and patterns. And I mean, the basic recommendation is eat low carb, high fiber, high protein diets. Those are going to support healthy regulation in insulin. But it's essential to track your blood work as well and know where you're trending. Too often, whether it's diabetes or any other disease, people are waiting till there's such a big problem they can't ignore it. That's where routine blood work is so helpful. For us, if you order blood work through us, we're always going to check your glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, and your insulin because we want to know where are you trending. Once we know where you're trending, then we can kind of nip it in the bud before it can be a problem. And, there's another thing too. Let's talk about the genetic test again, because it's my favorite, but it's helpful to know how prone are you to diabetes, or are you just experiencing some of these pre-diabetic symptoms due to lifestyle or poor detoxification? What factors are working with you or against you for that? Because you don't just wake up one day and suddenly you're diabetic. I mean, you don't just wake up with most diseases and suddenly that's what you got. No, there was a slow and steady, you know, avalanche, if you will, that just one day you realize, okay, this is where I'm at. But if you are being vigilant and smart with what you're eating, starting at your next meal, just look at your plate and see, okay, am I eating more carbs and processed sugars? Let's change that and get more protein. And then don't forget exercise. That is so important for diabetes, but also for so many inflammatory and degenerative diseases. So just remember to be active and to move and know that you can turn it around. Your body made it, it can get rid of it if you make the right choices.
That's for sure. When I see somebody with type 2 diabetes or pre diabetes, that is when I automatically go, okay, whoa, let's step back a minute and let's consider this person's whole endocrine system. And your endocrine system is the parts of your body that make hormones. So it's your thyroid, it's your adrenals, it's your pancreas, it's your sex organs, right? So there's a lot involved there, and that it all matters. If, for instance, did you know that if you have hypothyroid, you have a greater chance of having insulin resistance or high blood sugar? So that would be problematic. And another thing that, having a high blood sugar or pre-diabetes, you tend to have higher lipid levels. Okay. Now, there's a lot of controversy out there, and we're not getting into the cholesterol conversation today, but let's at least talk about triglycerides. Triglycerides are, to me, a truer commentary about the quality of the food that you're eating. And like Elena said, generally we want to see not just how many carbs are you eating, but what kind of carbs are you eating. But the same thing goes for fat. And it's not just, are you eating saturated fat, which gets a bad rap, right? But are you eating seed oils? Are you eating trans fats? How much are you eating? And genetically, what are you wired to actually metabolize? Because not all diabetics do well with a high fat diet. And keto is this real big thing for people who are insulin resistant or diabetic, but it's not really good for everybody, especially women. Women, you need carbohydrates, period, full stop. Different levels for different people, but we have a lot more going on in the hormone department, and it's important to cycle those carbohydrates through. So it's not just follow the diabetic diet, right? Macros do matter. And when you're pre-diabetic, it's a good indication that your metabolism is not very flexible. And what that means is you don't fluctuate well from carb burning to fat burning. You're probably not building a whole lot of muscle. What we want to do is reinstitute that. We've got to find what is needed. So does this sound like maybe workouts are involved? Yeah. Exercise, moving your body, that's all super important. But so is what you put on your plate. You cannot was it somebody says you can't outrun a bad diet. There's no way you can just eat trash and go to the gym more and be okay, because it may not show up on the scale, but it can show up in your blood work, like Elena is saying. And we want to see that hemoglobin A1C down in the low fives. 5.7 to 6.4 is considered pre-diabetic. And according to functional wellness principles, we're really looking more for 5.1, 5.2, and a fasting insulin below 4. That shows really good metabolic sensitivity or flexibility. It's good insulin sensitivity, meaning your body is very sensitive when sugar comes on board. There's insulin there to help with it. We want your diet optimized. We want your lifestyle optimized. And if you're stressed out, strung out, fast fooded out, it's not going to happen. So when I see, pre-diabetes, it's not just a number on the scale, and it's not just about the A1C and getting that number down. It's about the whole person, just like if we get anybody else in. And the beautiful thing is, when you are diagnosed with prediabetes, it's your wake up call. This is when you can say, all right, now we've got to fix things. Now we're going to get on board so that we have the rest of our life to do things correctly.
Okay. So now that we understand what to do for prediabetes and diabetes and a healthy lifestyle, let's talk about some exposures. Our next question is, we have a current contract with an eco-friendly pest control service. Is that okay? If not, what do you do about wasps, spiders, ants, etc.? I'll let you go there.
I love this. I always think of a friend of ours who did this, and her front yard smelled like pizza for a week after they have the yard sprayed because of the garlic, I guess, that was being used. But there's a lot. This is complicated, it's complex. I'm not going to sit here and bash on the pest control industry, but I am going to tell you kind of, how we roll with it. I think understanding the role that insects play in the environment is important. I think that it's important to consider where do you live and in what climate and what kind of insect is it. To me, I'm just going to be real. The only good scorpion is a dead scorpion in my book. And that's what we have at the ranch. And they scare the bejesus out of me. But that being said, the spiders, I discriminate. I'm like, oh, is that a good spider? What does it eat? And do we want to move it to the garden? There's a purpose for these things. Even, stinging insects, they often have a purpose. But there are a lot of good things as far as like, is your eco-friendly pest control really eco-friendly? That, there's a lot of gray area there. There's a lot of unknowns. If you ask the entomologist or the technician, oftentimes what we hear them say is, oh, I spray this at my house. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me because you probably use scented laundry detergent and dryer sheets too. And I don't do those things. So you can't just say, oh, well, they do it, so I'll do it. You have to know for you. Many pesticides are actually very toxic. They can be carcinogenic, neurotoxic. But that being said, there are green ones, like essential oils are natural pesticides. Tea tree, lemongrass, peppermint, I think even rosemary and lavender. In fact, you can put these plants around your home. If you feel like you have a lot of insects coming in, look at what you have planted around your house. Have you done anything naturally to possibly reduce the number of insects coming in? And that could be like planting rosemary bushes and lavender bushes and lemongrass and whatever else. And then maybe spraying garlic. I mean, that's an iffy one. There cedar is very anti-insect as well, but there are all kinds of UV traps, like UV lights to attract moths and mosquitoes, and there are other types of traps. I know so one time we got bed bugs, and it was horrible. We brought them home with us. And I was apparently allergic to them, and we didn't know this at the time. And we decided I was crazy temporarily because my husband had nothing on him, and I would wake up with just bites everywhere. Finally, we figured out he found one bed bug on a pillowcase, just happened to see it. And I was like, well, we can't spray anything. I mean, I'm just not doing chemicals. So he read up on it, and we ended up sealing off our room, borrowing every space heater we could from people we knew. And we heated our room up to, like, I don't know, some ungodly 140 degrees or something for 8 hours. We never had another bed bug. So we used heat. So there are a lot of things out there that you can do besides chemicals, even if they're self-proclaimed eco-friendly. I think looking at the environmental working group, does Yuka do
I think so. I
the
think they
insecticides?
review all kinds of products that have chemicals. So it's worth trying. Just don't quote us yet.
Yeah. But I would just look that up. And then when you can avoid chemicals, obviously we recommend avoiding them. Try to find another solution. Diffusers are great. This is where I think essential oils really rock.
Well, and then it's important to remember too, what preys on what. I know trying to do my garden organic, and the grasshoppers are like a plague from biblical days. And I don't want to go out there and spray because, one, those grasshoppers are so gnarly and resilient, they just morph into super bugs. These sprays don't really work. So I go out there, I do the garlic on everything. My yard smells delicious. But then I started looking at, okay, what eats these? Because there's not a great solution. So I started with every pest and bug. The grasshopper started it, but I started putting up birdhouses and bat houses for flies and mosquitoes. I went and got hundreds of praying mantis little cocoons because they'll eat grasshoppers when they're little. I mean, it's not the most effective, but it is effective. And I just have tried to become friends with the good bugs and even lizards. I mean, I get geckos and lizards everywhere in my house, and I don't love it. But I remember they eat bugs, so I've just decided to try and become friends with them. I mean, sometimes I'll call someone else to come get it out of my bed or my bathroom, but they've become my friends because when they're around, there's fewer other bugs that I really don't want around. So
Yeah.
that's one option. But then also just doing the essential oil things like you mentioned, Sharon, that's my favorite because you can use those inside and outside and go that step further. Once again, like you mentioned, plant the plants in your landscaping. We get landscaping wrong all the time. We're just planting things that look pretty, but they don't serve a purpose. I mean, I went scorched earth on my landscaping. It's rosemary and lavender everywhere. And every time it rains, it smells amazing. So that's helping from the outside. And then I'll go spray those natural things all the time that I've made myself, that I know what's in them. Yes, there's brands you can buy, but it is also easy to make your own. And your home will smell like a spa inside and out. What's not to love?
That's true. And I think too, we should point out, like, you live semi-country-ish.
Yes,
You're
yes.
on acreage, right? And, yes, I live in town and I don't really have big bug problems and we don't really use a bug spray service, but out on the ranch, we have everything, but we keep chickens around
Oh,
and yeah, they eat crickets and, like you said, grasshoppers. They're biblical out there and like robo cop type.
yeah.
Things are really something, but I think there's a lot that nature's provided to help keep balance. It's because we're so out of balance that our environment becomes out of balance. And to your point about yards, what are we doing being grass farmers? My uncle always called it, look, I'm a grass farmer. Just growing that front lawn. It serves no purpose.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation,
I
isn't it?
know. I
But
know.
with the bugs, though, we got another question about cleaning products because once again, it's chemicals, 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 and we do have a non-toxic cleaning guide that we'd love to share with you all. We're going to put it in our show notes, where you could get some of those recipes. And some of the main ingredients cross over from your pest control to cleaning products. Most of the cleaning product ingredients are simple things I bet a lot of you already have, Castile soap and vinegar and essential oils. Those are basics. And it's just really helpful to be able to use these multi-purposed ingredients. I love it when I clean my house because, like I said, when I spray, it smells like a spa. When I clean, it smells like a spa. So that just simplifies what you have to spend money on because there's a lot of money to be made out there, a lot of money to be paid on all these clean products. And sometimes for convenience, that's what you want to do, but you don't always have to.
For sure.
But, hey, next question though, Sharon, this is a big one.
Okay.
Speaking of chemicals and pollutants and exposures, the Berkey water filter question. What do we do? Do we need to filter fluoride? Should we be adding anything to it? Can we still get the filters?
Yeah. Oh, this is a big one. So, for those listeners out there who filter water, I think everybody in the water filter world knows about Berkey filters. They've been around for a long time. And they were when I learned about them, it was kind of more of like a survivalist type thing. Like, oh, you can take this camping and you can put any kind of water in it and it filters it and makes it drinkable. But our tap water is so gross, right? There's so many pharmaceuticals and contaminants in it that the Berkey filters have been very useful, but they got in trouble. And they got in trouble with the EPA because they were saying that it kills microorganisms. And so when you do that, then the EPA actually requires you to register as a pesticide or insecticide. And this is my version of what happened. So, fact check me. And so anyway, Berkey got in trouble. And I think they had to pull all their filters. Now, Berkey was really, really good at reducing a lot of heavy metals, a lot of pesticides, herbicides, pharmaceuticals, things that we find in the water. Now you can't, I don't think you can find Berkey anymore, but they rebranded and it's a company called Borou, Borous. And Borou filters fit the Berkey water filter systems. These are gravity systems, right? There's another company called Greenfield, and they make filters that feed these gravity filtration systems. But that's it's complicated. And so in doing our research, it appears that while yes, the basic filters like Bordeaux, Berkey, well, I'll just say Berkey because I don't really know Bordeaux. They do filter out a lot, but there are these additional filters that remove chlorine and fluoride that you could add to, and they are lower filters. The problem is when they did the testing, they found that it was actually dropping a lot of aluminum in the filtered water. So you're trading a little fluoride for a lot of aluminum. To me, I'm not comfortable with that. And now that I have that knowledge, it's kind of like, yeah, I can't really do that anymore. Fluoride is not great for you. That's again another podcast. The fluoride in our water system is not going to prevent cavities. I sorry to break it to you, but it's just not. And there are other options. If you have Berkey, fine. My personal recommendation based on my experience and my opinion is to just use the black filters, to use the basic filters that do everything except the chlorine and the fluoride. That's my recommendation. That's what I'm doing myself. And I have one other one that uses the Greenfield, and it's fine too. Out at the ranch, we distill our water. We have well water, and we got a countertop distiller. Now, why would we distill water instead of just using a Berkey? Well, distillation is the only way to remove radioactive elements from the water. Berkey won't do it. Reverse osmosis does not do it. What else is there? Just these other multi-mineral or charcoal filters. They don't remove the radioactive elements. And with all the toxin testing that we do on our clients, and we've done it on ourselves, and we both came back with a lot of radioactive elements, and we both drink a lot of Berkey water. And it's not Berkey putting radioactive elements in there. It's in the groundwater. It's everywhere. So countertop water distillation, I've had really good success with. It does remove all the minerals. We do add electrolytes to the water after it's been distilled so that we are getting minerals. That may seem like a lot of trouble to some people. To me, it's worth it. I want to drink clean water. And it's scary to think about what's in our water. I know like in the early 2000s, I think it was the early 2000s, they were wanting to put statin drugs in all the water just as a prevention. And what a terrible idea. And the thing is, we can't trust our governmental authorities or the people making these decisions. They don't have foresight like that to know, oh, we know everything we need to know about this drug and we know that it's safe and we're going to give it to everybody, regardless of their genetics and the way that however much CoQ10 their body has. I mean, it is a terrible idea. It was horrible. So yeah, I like water distillation. What do you think?
I go with the distilled water as well. I mean, I recommend that to clients more than anything these days because as much as we've loved the Berkey for years and even reverse osmosis, there are too many other toxins that aren't being removed. And when you spend so much time, money, and energy on your health trying to feel better, you want to make sure that you're drinking the cleanest water that you possibly can. And I like also being in control of what minerals or electrolytes I'm adding back in. I'm not getting water that has some poor quality minerals or electrolytes. That's important. And remember, now you all know how to make your own salt soleil and how to eat the right salts. So that's helpful to have that and just know, okay, I can drink my clean water and I can monitor what I'm being exposed to in a matter of minerals.
And I think I agree with you. And if you're going to go all the way for health, why would you ignore your water?
which you should be drinking a lot of.
Exactly, as we discussed earlier. But you can do, if you don't have a Berkey, it's okay. Berkey's great. Water distillation is great. Reverse osmosis is terrific too. Is it Aqua True is rated very highly. It's a countertop reverse osmosis. Now, the thing with reverse osmosis is the waste ratio. And I believe they have like a 4-to-1 ratio. So for 4 gallons of water that you filter, you're going to lose a gallon of water in waste. So there is that, but it does produce very clean water. There is no perfect water system. If you listen to this and you have a Berkey system, I don't think you should get rid of it. I think you go look at Greenfield, look at Boreau. Maybe there's another one I don't know of, and do the best you can. Our bodies are resilient. I think that's important to remember too. There's no perfect water, and let's just get past that. Let's put the very best in that we can in the meantime.
Anything
So,
is better than nothing.
absolutely.
And so don't go
Absolutely.
crazy thinking you got to have the best one. Guess what? I still have and love my Berkey. That's on the countertop for everyone else. It's just my drinking water is the distilled water.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's do one more question. I see more and more discussion about the toxicity of clothes. Can fabrics really be that bad for us? If so, what should we stay away from? And what do you think about cooling sheets and pillows?
That is
Ooh,
a good question because we are surrounded by synthetic things everywhere. So, as much as we are working hard, a lot of us are, right? We're working hard to make sure we're not exposed to chemicals. We don't think about the ones we're wearing. Because if your clothes aren't made from cotton or linen or silk, there's other natural ones, but those are the biggest ones. If you're not wearing those, you are literally wearing clothes made out of chemicals. And it does leach. And you're wearing that every day. You're getting this microdose exposure day after day after
and
day.
plastic.
Right. And the biggest thing too is it's going to change the way your body regulates temperature. It's a lot cooler out in the Texas heat here if you're in a linen or silk shirt versus a polyester tank top even. If you've got natural fibers and it's breezy, it's so much better. And then the cooling sheets and pillows, I mean, I say just adjust your thermostat.
I like that idea. But it's also the weave, right? Whether it's your sheets or your clothes, you're always going to be better in a natural fiber, right? Because we're trying to be as natural as possible and there's no dangerous chemicals. Now they do sometimes like these combed cottons or whatever. I think they coat them with something. I know my husband noticed his work shirts. I always buy him 100% cotton, but there are some of them that just don't breathe. And I think there's some sort of coating on some of them, or the weave is so tight they just don't breathe. So whether
And,
it's linen or silk or cotton, that's just something to consider.
and once again, we have to do the best we can because
Yep.
there's a lot of chemicals that are sprayed onto cotton, like the
Yeah.
cotton crops that can be in your fabric still, but you can't win on everything. Like just
No.
don't make yourself go crazy on that. You do the best you can, you pick the lesser of evils, and just be grateful you have clothes.
That's so true. And I will say this, if you order clothes or you go buy clothes and they smell, jeans are real bad about this. They smell like rubber or they smell like chemicals or like, I think of burning tires. Don't put that on. There's something real bad in there. You probably shouldn't be wearing it. Look for something else. Keep shopping.
And I think a bigger toxic problem is the sprays and finishes they put on them
Mm-hmm.
when you buy them. Like you should always wash your new clothes before you wear them.
And what should you wash them in, Elena? Bonus question.
An unscented detergent, as free and clear as can be.
Yes. It's funny because, we have a policy here at the office that is there's no fragrances allowed. And people don't understand how much they smell. We have learned to associate the idea of clean with a smell, whether it's pine cleaner for your floors or it smells like a dryer sheet or a laundry detergent. But clean is not a smell. There's no smell with clean. And I think that once you get away from those fragrances, you don't realize how offensive they are until you come into contact with them. And I have to tell clients, I will tell the truth in love. I have to tell clients regularly, I could smell you before I saw you because of your fragrance. And it's not cologne, it's not perfume, it's, you can tell it's laundry, and they have no idea. But all of those chemicals and those fragrances, they disrupt our hormones. So yeah, what you wear is important, and then how you care for it is also very important. Okay, last question. Elena, this one's for you.
Okay.
How many times do you reuse the same castor oil pack, and how do you clean it?
All right. Good question. From what I understand, 3 months is kind of the common rule for replacing it. But that's going to differ on how many times you're using it. Some people are castor packing every day. Some people are doing it once a week. And really my rule is I kind of treat it like I treat my bath towel. I try to replace it before it gets smelly and noticeable. Like, just pay attention to it. And I'll take mine, honestly, after a month or so. If I've used it a lot, I'll rinse it in the sink with Castile soap. I mean, Castile soap is amazing for getting that castor oil residue off your skin as well as your fabric. So I'll just give it a little rinse and let it dry. I don't worry about getting all the oil out because I'm just putting oil back on it, but it at least gets that initial layer off. And then you can just throw it in the washer. I mean, I don't think everyone would agree with that, but if I'm washing something on hot with a load of towels, it washes the rag and then you can just keep using it. I don't think you need to overthink it. More importantly, just keep castor packing if that's what you need to be doing for your health right now. But once again, 3 months, that's kind of the common time frame.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my little go-to on castor packing. Just
Very
do
good.
it.
Yeah. And if you don't want a castor pack, just rub it all over your belly and then get in the sauna.
Yes, I love that.
That's the Elena cheat.
It is.
Very good. Okay. We could go for 3 more hours and we're not going to do that. But there are so many good questions here, and we've looked at these. And if we didn't get to your question this time, hang tight, because we have our community gatherings where we gather in person the fourth Wednesday of every month here at K6 Wellness. We're going to answer some more of these. We're going to do actually some of these as a full podcast episode.
They were
coming
that good.
Yeah, the questions were so good. Thank you so much to everybody who contributed. If you didn't hear yours answered, we're going to be contacting you either with an answer or a hang on. We're going to dive into this. But this seems to be the perfect place to just wrap up this conversation for today. And we do hope that you found this information valuable. We'd love to hear from you. So if you watch the show on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. And also check us out on Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you'd like more information about how to better take care of your health and live a healthy lifestyle, visit us at k6wellness.com to schedule an appointment, either in person or virtually. And until next time, take care of yourself, because your health is worth fighting for.